Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. I'm recording this video a few months now into our new lives. I'd like to say post-pandemic, I wish I could, but we're still in the midst of a pandemic and just experiencing it in a different way than we were a few weeks ago. What's been interesting about this period of time is that many people have spoken about how it's been an opportunity in a period that has allowed for much reflection and much looking back on how things have been done before. And people have been coming up with lots of really interesting and creative ways about how we can look at doing things differently and making things differently as we go forward, and the opportunity that this pause in many things has given us. What I've specifically been reflecting on is that in many ways this is not a moment of pause or reflection or stop for young people. Young people that I'm speaking to and coming into contact with, both through my role but also in general, are not spending lots of time reflecting on anything. They're just in their lives. They're looking at what's happening now and they're wondering what the impact is going to be for them, because this is just their life now. And it's been a rough ride for many young people. If you're between, let's say, the ages of 20 and 30, your last 15 foundation years have been made up of an international financial crisis, austerity, Brexit, climate change action, increasing knife crime, and a wealth divide that's growing larger day by day. And then they get hit by COVID, as we all have been. But recent data tells us that something like 2 million young people will become unemployed as a direct result of the pandemic. So it's been pretty bleak for you as a young person right now. So when I'm thinking about my role, and both in my job but in my wider sphere of leadership, I'm feeling a growing responsibility to work in whichever ways I can to support the generation of young people that are around now to find space to get their voices heard. I'm sure if you've had a conversation with any young person under the age of 30, I guarantee you they'll have ideas about how to move forward, what changes need to happen and take place. And they're not simply the victims of everything, which is how much of policy and many of our structures like to treat young people. They're creative, they're problem solving, innovative, unafraid in lots of ways, and I think they're pretty fed up of the grown-ups mucking up the job in their view. And they're most definitely not there to be patronised, rather they're there to be consulted with and maybe asked about how they feel and what they think they'd like to happen. I think they're a rich and largely untapped resource of different thinking that needs to be heard and guided and empowered. It's more important now than probably before, I think, for me and others to make a conscious effort to get younger voices heard in the debates of how we co-create the future. One of the things I was really worried about when we first went into lockdown was that the decision-making world would revert back into some very old and bad habits of conversations taking place behind closed doors, decisions being made with the same types of voices, and people's and different experiences being excluded from those forums, and that diversity would become an unaffordable luxury because there was no time and we had to make decisions at speed. The events of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, I think, have put a spotlight on racism and the many inequalities of our societal structures, and caught up in that, I think, is the spotlight on the lack of diversity at decision-making level. And for me, there is a definite lack of the younger generations being voiced, their voices being heard at those tables and in those rooms. As a creative sector, we really get and understand the concept of supporting emerging artists and developing young creatives. So I'm challenging myself and openly inviting you to take part in that, to spend some time thinking about how to support emerging leaders and emerging decision makers. I really want to think about how to support them to get experience and to find some opportunities to flex and develop their leadership muscle. And this will start from creating some kind of spaces where and inviting spaces where their voices can be heard and they can begin to understand how to have impact, how to fine tune that, how to advocate in the way they want to, and how to influence in the way they want to. It's really easy in the business of everyday leadership and our very developed understanding in terms of the wider context of running our organisations and our companies to forget to canvass the voices of the younger generation. So I'm inviting us all to take some time to think about how we do this in a more constructive and impactful way. Let's find some space to guide some young voices and get them further up the influencing chain in a shorter space of time than it's taken many of us, and into as many future shaping conversations as we possibly can. Look after yourselves and stay well, everyone.